Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is the 18th of May, 2022. Part two of our show today. If you are watching on YouTube, it's just the second part of the show. If you're listening, wherever you guys get your podcast. On the show today, on this part of the show, we're discussing CBS Sports list of the top 65 Power 5 coaches ranked 1 through 65. 26 through 65 came out in their rankings, and 7 Big 10 coaches are in that span from 26 through 65. We'll tell you guys who they are and where they're ranked coming up next.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Once again, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Make sure you guys find us on Twitter at LO Big 12. You guys can find me at Josh Neighbors _. Find the show wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Tom Fornelli wrote this article over at CBS Sports. It's their panel of people voted on this. So Dennis Dodd, I'm assuming, Josh Pate, Barrett Salee, Chip Patterson, all of those guys, and Tom as well. All voted on it. Tom wrote the article itself. 7 Big 12 coaches ranked from 26 through 65 in their rankings. So part 2 of their rankings are coming out later. The 3 coaches that we will not be talking about because they're ranked higher, we'll talk about them when we see the rankings, obviously, are Matt Campbell, Dave Aranda, and Mike Gundy. Everybody else was in these rankings. So let's get to it. Let's see where these guys are. We'll tell you where they are, who's around them, and whatnot. All right, so Chris Kleinman is at 31. Ahead of him at 30 is Jeff Brom of Purdue. And then below him, it is Billy Napier at Florida. Last year, they had Kleinman at 37, so he's up 6 spots. And Tom Fornelli says, as a Kleinman hype man, I'm pleased to see my fellow voters coming on board. Kleinman has been at Kansas State for 3 seasons, and his worst campaign was a pandemic year in 2020. In 2 normal seasons, he's gone 16-10, which keeps the program right where it was under Bill Snyder. Now the question is whether Kleinman can improve on it. I think it's the big question for everybody, right? I think there is not a level of impatience at Kansas State because I think there's a realization of who they are, but they want to see them take that next step and have one of those big years they haven't had in a minute. Try to contend maybe for a Big 12 championship. And they got a player in Deuce Vaughn that can help them do that. I think they've got a quarterback potentially who could, and Adrian Martinez. We'll see how he performs. Good receiving core as well. We'll see where that defense comes in. I know they were really banged up guys this spring. Chris Kleinman told us that on SXM Big 12 radio. He said they were really banged up. So I'm wondering limited reps, how that affects them in spring. It's always huge if you're losing out time at any point in time to build continuity. So that's something to note as we move forward here. But bringing Colin Klein to call the offensive plays could be a big season for them. But I was shocked that he was the highest ranked coach. I was pretty surprised. Thought we'd see somebody a little higher. Next guy, I was surprised how high he was. It was Sonny Dykes at 35. You go on to 35, and at 35, ahead of him, it is Jeff Haffley, who is at 34. And then also at 36, Greg Schiano, who dropped 2 spots. Sonny Dykes was not ranked last year. He said, I was interested in seeing where Dykes would debut, and I'm slightly surprised he starts this high. As am I, Tom. Dykes did well at SMU, going 30-18, but his time at Cal wasn't nearly as successful. During his 4 seasons there, the Bears were 19-30 and 10-26 in Pac-12. But of course, TCU is a much better fit for Dykes, as he's in an area he's very familiar with, and it's set up for more success in a rapidly changing Big 12. I agree with all those things that Tom Fornelli just said. If you all listened to the show before, when the Sonny Dykes hire was happening, I thought, look, the Cal stuff you can throw out the window. This is a Texas guy. He didn't belong at Cal, right? Culture and fit like that matters. Some fish out of water can succeed. Sonny Dykes at Cal's a tough place to win, man. It's a really tough place. People like Justin Wilcox, and he's not doing a ton of winning as far as it goes at Cal. So I would say Sonny Dykes, I'm surprised he's this high. We got to see, how things go at first, but I would give it a year or two. But yeah, I think Gary Patterson set a blueprint. Now, obviously, he did it with defense, but I think Gary Patterson set a blueprint that, you can win at TCU. And I think TCU, with its infrastructure, with its financial backing and its location, can definitely vie to be one of the top players in the new Big 12. This new set of hires in the Big 12 is so important because you have to nail this hire right now to set yourself up in the new Big 12 conference. There's a lot of jockeying. I think that's what's fun about it. Is there's going to be a lot of rotation, but everybody's going to be trying to establish themselves. The guys who have got a leg up are the Matt Campbells of these days, because they've been around for a while. Or Dave Aranis has some success. I guess he does. Mike Gundy, I think, is the guy we put in the driver's seat, right? I mean, I saw Josh Pate talking about it the other day, mentioning CBS Sports. He was, he did a video just basically, or part of a video at least, acknowledging how successful Oklahoma State has been and the run that Mike Gundy has built in Stillwater. Consistent, awesome seasons from Mike Gundy, time and time and time again. Are they OU? No. Are they pretty close to it though, and have made some bids and rivaled OU and got some wins? Yes. Yes, they have. So I think those guys have a chance in the new Big 12. But let's see out of this new crop of coaches, both guys coming into the league and also guys coming and taking over teams that are already in the league. So your Sonny Dykes, your Joey Mcguires. I'm curious to see how those guys do. But Sonny Dykes, I was a bit shocked at 35. All right, next one's an interesting one. Steve Sarkeesian comes in at 39. Excuse me. Ahead of him, it's Brett Bielema at 38. And then behind him, it is Tom Allen, who's fallen 20 spots. He's at 40. Sark is up actually 7. And Tom Fernelli says, this is one of the more confusing results of our rankings this season. Though aspects of having nothing to do with Sark himself, the influx of new coaches, substantial drop-offs of others may have resulted in Sark's rise. Last year, Sarkeesian took the Texas job, showed up at number 46, and after the Longhorns went 5-7 and losing 6 of the last 7 games, including KU missing a bowl game for the first time since 16. Sark rises 7 spots in our rankings. I suppose landing a QB like Quentin Ewers and other transfers this offseason has some voters feeling a little more bullish on him than the results dictate. So I would say that, I kind of agree with this. It's kind of weird to see him this high, but you think about it and it's like, look, we still, the non-wins and losses stuff, at least last year, I think Steve Sarkeesian is building a really good roster. I think that's kind of where a lot of this goes. Now, 39 out of 65 folks, it's not this excellent ranking, right? He's still back half of the rankings at 39. So I would say, think about it that way. Still top 40, but still that's back half of the rankings. That's the way I would look at that one. All right. I thought he would be higher. Lance Lipold, who dropped 7 spots. He is at 42. Shane Beamer is ahead there at 41. And then Scott Satterfield's behind him at Louisville at 43. Tom Fernelli says, I'm surprised that Lance Lipold dropped 7 spots, but I'm also not surprised. Some of that's likely due to turnover of our voters, but he also arrived at Kansas last season ranked number 35. Then he went 2-10 and won Kansas' first Big 12 game since 19 when he beat Texas, and his reward was dropping 7 spots. I don't know how much more our voters expected him to accomplish in his first year. So I would have put Lance Lipold ahead of Steve Sarkeesian, not because the head-to-head win. I don't really care about that. But what Lance Lipold did, having them competitive in a number of games last year after coming in at a late time and having so much flux and creating a lot of positivity around, Lance Lipold is a good football coach. There is no doubt about that. And we all know we measure things differently at KU. So I would just say that, look, this he is a good football coach. He deserves to be higher than this. I would say I would put him ahead of Shane Beamer. I would put him ahead. Tom Allen, I don't really know. I put him ahead of Sark. I put him ahead of Bielema at this point, right? Right now at this point in time. Just because I love the way things went for them last year. I love the fact they came and got this guy late. I love the fact that he was able to get this thing in a positive direction where they're competitive in games and winning games at the end of the year, challenging Oklahomas of the world, beating the Texas of the world on the road, challenging the TCUs and the West Virginias in close games. This team did everything it could last season, in my opinion, given the circumstances, and that's because the guy who came in and got the job done. So that's why I would put him higher. Shane Beamer, we've seen guys go up and down at jobs like that. I think either him or Josh Heupel are going to have a disappointing year because they've set the expectations kind of high in their first year. Everybody thinks about a natural jump, but it doesn't work that way in the SEC. It's not how that league works. So I think Lance Leipold, in my opinion, I really value him. 42, I think, is a bit far for me. Brent Venables from Oklahoma checks in at 45. Ahead of him, Justin Wilcox at Cal, who dropped 6 spots. And then Eli Drinkwitz at 46, who dropped 3 spots. Venables was not in the rankings. So this is, it's actually, wow, this is crazy. This is the highest a debuting head coach has ever appeared in their coaching rankings. Doesn't come as much of a surprise, he says. Venables has been the mastermind behind some of the best defenses in the country at Clemson, won multiple titles there. I think this just as a reflection of, once again, he's a new guy. I would have put him a bit further ahead just because it's, well, I guess it's not really a prediction of success. So I guess this is the right place to put him. But like the vibe I get is a really strong and good vibe from Brent Venables. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. I guess you can't put him, like, it's hard to place a guy like that because he's never coached a game. So I guess, yeah, this might be the right area to put him. I don't know, but I just kind of feel better about Brent Venables than where he's ranked. All right, quick word from our sponsors, and we'll get to the two remaining coaches left on this list. But first, today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto and rockauto.com. You guys can go to rockauto.com today. When you go there, you guys can find any part that you need for your car or truck. Just do it. Just go there. You guys need tail lamps, carpet, probably even have little air fresheners. You guys can get rockauto.com today. Go there. It's a family-run business serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. Go check it out. rockauto.com today. Say that we sent you. Amazing selection, always low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That's rockauto.com. All right, number 52 in the rankings. It is one Neil Brown. You guys know that Neil Brown at West Virginia, things have been up and down. He is ahead of Kalen DeBoer, who is just debuting as a head coach at in the Power Five. He was previously at Fresno, and then we have Nebraska's Scott Frost, who is at 53. Neil Brown has dropped 11 spots. 3 seasons at West Virginia have been consistent. The problem is consistency is enough. The Mountaineers have never won more than 6 games in this season, nor had a winning record in the Big 12. 25.2 points per game WVU scored last year. Didn't do anything for Brown, considering his offensive background. Obviously, they bring in JT Daniels. They got Graham Harrell now. Love that he's making a decision. He's making a choice here to switch up what's going to happen on the offensive side of the ball. I think they need a jolt this year. I think they needed that badly, but 52 seems about right. And then 62, we have one Joey Mcguire, obviously debuting as a head coach in the college Division I college ranks. I think this is the right place for Joey Mcguire. Ahead of him at 61 is Jed Fish. A lot of positivity behind Jed Fish right now. And then 63 is Jake Dickert, who takes over at Washington State, and he was the interim coach there. So Mcguire, a lot of fans are excited. They're hoping for the Texas high school football connections, all that kind of stuff. But I think, he's got to be there just because he's new. We don't really know what to expect. But I think it could be a big year for them, if things break right in a conference that kind of feels wide open. We'll see what happens. They're going to need some more talent at wide receiver. I think they're trying to get that right now. But I believe this is a really interesting spot to have him ranked towards the back just because we don't know about him. All right, that will do it for today's show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at LO Big 12. You guys can follow me at Josh Neighbors _ Find the show wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.